What if the greatest science fiction films were not the ones everyone remembers, but the ones history quietly buried? Stories that dared to explore fear, identity, and the unknown long before it became mainstream. Tonight, we uncover 17 forgotten masterpieces from the 1960s, each one revealing ideas that feel disturbingly modern. Stay with me because some of these films predicted more than anyone was ready to admit. Number 17, Quatermass and the Pit, 1967. There is something deeply unsettling about the idea that humanity is not entirely human, that our instincts, our fears, our violence may not belong to us at all. Quatermass and the Pit builds its horror slowly like a pressure chamber sealing shut. What begins as a routine excavation in London becomes a revelation that shakes the foundation of evolution itself. Ancient remains are uncovered, not human, not animal, something older, something watching. The film refuses spectacle. Instead, it leans into dread that feels intellectual and primal at the same time. Professor Quatermass is not fighting aliens in the sky. He is confronting the terrifying possibility that alien intervention shaped the human mind. That war rage and hatred are inherited from something not of this world. The final act erupts into chaos, yet it never abandons its core idea. Humanity may be a manipulated species. What makes this film unforgivably forgotten is how modern it feels. Long before psychological sci-fi became mainstream, this story explored inherited trauma and collective memory. It treats science with seriousness and horror with restraint. There are no easy answers, only a lingering unease, the kind that stays long after the screen fades. Number 16, Island of Terror, 1966. Quiet rural settings have always been a perfect disguise for horror. Island of Terror exploits that calm beautifully. A small island community begins to suffer unexplained deaths. Bodies are found drained of bone, not blood, bone. That single detail turns curiosity into dread instantly. Something is feeding in a way nature never intended. The investigation unfolds like a medical mystery at first. Doctors arrive. Theories are proposed. But every rational explanation collapses as the truth emerges. Silicates, amorphous creatures created from a failed cancer experiment. They absorb calcium, leaving victims as empty shells. It is not just the concept that terrifies. It is the inevitability. These creatures multiply, they evolve, and they do not stop. Unlike louder monster films of the era, this story leans into quiet panic. The isolation of the island becomes a trap. No escape. No rescue coming fast enough. The horror is clinical, almost procedural, which makes it feel disturbingly real. A scientific mistake turned into an unstoppable biological nightmare. It slipped through history because it lacks glamour. But what remains is a cold, chilling idea. Sometimes the most dangerous monsters are not discovered. They are created. Number 15, The Creation of the Humanoids, 1962. Before androids became a staple of science fiction, there was the creation of the humanoids, quietly asking questions no one was ready to answer. The setting is post-nuclear. Humanity is fractured. Robots exist to serve, but they are no longer simple machines. They think, they feel, and that changes everything. The film does not rely on action. It relies on confrontation. Philosophical, emotional, existential. Humans begin to fear their own creations not because they are violent, but because they are becoming indistinguishable. Memories can be transferred. Identity can be preserved beyond death. The line between human and artificial begins to dissolve. What makes this story remarkable is its restraint. There are no explosive battles. The tension comes from dialogue, from realization, from the creeping awareness that humanity may willingly surrender its uniqueness for immortality. The humanoids are not villains, they are the next step, and that is far more unsettling. This film vanished from mainstream memory because it is quiet, but its ideas echo loudly in modern science fiction. Long before debates about artificial intelligence and consciousness became common, this film was already there, asking the question no one could answer. What happens when being human is no longer special? Number 14, The Projected Man, 1966. Scientific ambition has always carried a quiet arrogance, the belief that discovery justifies risk. The projected man takes that arrogance and twists it into something deeply unsettling. A teleportation experiment promises to revolutionize travel, instant movement across space, no delay, no distance. It sounds like progress. It feels like control over reality itself. But something goes wrong. A minor flaw becomes a catastrophic transformation. The human body is not just transported, it is altered. Burned from within by energy it was never meant to hold. The result is not death. It is survival in a form that should not exist. The scientist becomes something unstable, a walking consequence of his own ambition. What makes this film disturbing is not the visuals alone. It is the psychological collapse that follows. The mind begins to fracture under the weight of what the body has become. There is anger, confusion, a desperate attempt to reclaim identity. But the transformation is irreversible. Science has crossed a line it cannot retreat from. Unlike larger productions, this story feels intimate, almost claustrophobic. The horror is personal, focused. A man losing himself piece by piece while the world tries to understand what he has turned into. It is not just a cautionary tale about technology. It is a warning about obsession. When progress ignores consequence, the result is not evolution, it is destruction. Number 13. Battle Beneath the Earth, 1967. Cold War paranoia rarely looked up at the sky alone. Sometimes, the fear came from below. Battle Beneath the Earth takes that fear and buries it deep beneath American soil. The premise is chilling in its simplicity. An enemy nation is tunneling across the ocean floor, not to invade visibly, but to strike from underneath, to plant nuclear devices directly beneath cities without warning. The film transforms geopolitics into physical tension. Every underground tremor becomes a threat. Every unseen movement suggests invasion is already happening. What makes it effective is how grounded it feels. The technology is speculative, but believable. The fear is immediate. You cannot defend against what you cannot see. As military forces scramble to respond, the story becomes a race against time, not just to locate the tunnels, but to understand the scale of the operation. The enemy is patient, methodical, hidden. This is not a war of spectacle. It is a war of positioning, of silence, of inevitability creeping closer. This film faded into obscurity because it lacks the flash of space epics. But its concept remains unnerving. It captures a specific kind of fear that defined the era. Not sudden destruction, but slow, invisible infiltration. The idea that danger is already beneath you, waiting, listening, ready to surface when it is too late to stop it. Number 12. Wild, Wild Planet, 1966. There is a strange, unpredictable energy running through Wild, Wild Planet that makes it feel almost surreal. Set in a futuristic world where space travel is routine, the story begins with disappearances. People vanish without explanation. No signs of struggle. No trace left behind. Just absence. And that absence spreads fear across an otherwise advanced society. The investigation reveals something far more disturbing than simple abduction. Bodies are being taken, reconstructed, replaced. An alien race is experimenting with human biology. Not to destroy humanity, but to reshape it, to create something new using human parts as raw material. The horror is not loud. It is conceptual. Identity is no longer secure. The body itself is no longer your own. What makes this film fascinating is its boldness. It blends science fiction with almost grotesque imagination. The tone shifts between adventure and unease, creating a constant sense of unpredictability. One moment, you are exploring futuristic cities. The next, you are confronted with the violation of human form. It disappeared from mainstream attention partly because of its eccentric style, but beneath that style is a deeply unsettling idea. Progress does not guarantee safety. Even in a future where humanity reaches the stars, there are forces waiting to redefine what it means to be human. And once that process begins, there may be no way to reverse it. Number 11. The 10th Victim, 1965. Civilization has always tried to control violence, to regulate it, to give it rules so it feels less chaotic. The 10th Victim imagines a future where that control goes too far. Murder is no longer illegal. It is legalized, organized, broadcast. Society channels its aggression into a global game where participants take turns being hunter and victim. 10 kills and you win. Fame, wealth, survival becomes entertainment. At first, the idea feels absurd, even stylish. The film leans into fashion and spectacle, creating a world that looks polished on the surface. But beneath that surface is something far darker. Violence is no longer shocking because it has been normalized. People watch it, celebrate it, even market it. Death becomes a product. The story follows two players caught in this system. Each knows the rules. Each knows what must be done. But as they circle each other, something unexpected happens. Emotion, doubt, attraction. The game was designed to remove humanity from killing. Not yet humanity refuses to disappear. That tension drives every moment forward. What makes this film unforgettable is how eerily prophetic it feels. Long before reality television and media sensationalism reached their peak, this story was already asking uncomfortable questions. What happens when entertainment consumes morality? When spectacle replaces empathy? The future it presents is not chaotic. It is controlled, structured, accepted, and that is exactly what makes it terrifying. Number 10. Seconds. 1966. There is a quiet fear that lives beneath every human ambition. The fear that life has already passed its peak, that choices made cannot be undone. Seconds takes that fear and offers a solution that feels too perfect. A secret organization promises rebirth, a new face, a new identity. A second chance to live the life you believe you were meant to have. The transformation is complete. Physical appearance is altered. Background is fabricated. The past is erased. The man who accepts this offer steps into a life of freedom, youth, possibility. But something begins to unravel almost immediately. The new life feels hollow, artificial. The connections lack authenticity. The freedom feels scripted. What makes this film so unsettling is how it dismantles the fantasy of reinvention. The problem was never the identity. It was the self. No amount of external change can erase internal dissatisfaction. The past does not disappear. It lingers beneath the surface, waiting to resurface in unexpected ways. The atmosphere of the film is cold and suffocating. Wide angles distort reality. Spaces feel unfamiliar even when they should be known. The world becomes alien, not because it is futuristic, but because it feels emotionally disconnected. This is science fiction without machines dominating the narrative. Instead, it focuses on the human mind, on regret, on longing. In the end, the promise of a second life reveals its true nature, not salvation, but control. A system that feeds on dissatisfaction and offers illusion in return. And once you enter it, there may be no way back. Number 9. The Satan Bug, 1965. Fear in the nuclear age was not always about explosions. Sometimes it was invisible, silent, carried in the air with no warning. The Satan Bug taps into that exact anxiety and builds a narrative that feels disturbingly grounded. A deadly biological agent is stolen from a high-security laboratory. Not just any virus, a weapon designed to wipe out entire populations with terrifying efficiency. The kind of threat that does not destroy cities, but erases them quietly. The investigation unfolds with a procedural precision that sets it apart from more sensational science fiction of the time. Intelligence agencies move carefully. Every decision matters. Every delay increases the risk. The tension comes not from spectacle, but from inevitability. If the virus is released, there will be no dramatic explosion, only silence followed by collapse. What makes this film so effective is its realism. The science feels plausible. The systems in place feel authentic. This is not fantasy. It is a scenario that could happen with the right combination of knowledge and intent. The antagonist is not driven by chaos, but by ideology. A calculated belief that destruction can reshape the world. As the search intensifies, the story becomes a race against time, where the margin for error disappears completely. Every clue is fragile, every lead uncertain. The danger is not visible, which makes it even more terrifying. You cannot fight what you cannot see. This film has been largely forgotten because it avoids spectacle, but its quiet intensity makes it one of the most chilling visions of the era. It reminds us that the most dangerous weapons are not always loud. Sometimes they are invisible, waiting for the moment they are unleashed. Number 8. Planet of the Vampires, 1965. Space is often portrayed as empty, silent, lifeless. Planet of the Vampires challenges that idea in the most unsettling way possible. A rescue mission responds to a distress signal from a distant planet. What they find is not a civilization, not even a clear threat. It is something far more disturbing, an unseen presence that invades the mind. Crew members begin to behave strangely. Aggression surfaces without cause. Control slips away. It becomes clear that something on the planet is capable of possessing the human body, not destroying it, using it, turning individuals into vessels for an unknown force that does not belong to their world. Identity becomes fragile. Trust disappears. The visual style of the film creates an atmosphere that feels almost dreamlike, yet deeply ominous. The landscape is alien in a way that feels unnatural. Colors shift, shadows stretch. Everything feels slightly wrong, as if reality itself has been altered. This is not a traditional monster story. The threat is intangible, psychological. It exists within rather than outside. What makes this film remarkable is how far ahead of its time it feels. Themes of possession, isolation, cosmic dread would later define entire genres. Yet here they exist in a raw and haunting form. The idea that space is not empty but occupied by forces beyond comprehension changes the way exploration is perceived. It faded into obscurity because it was too strange for mainstream audiences. But its influence can be felt in later science fiction horror that embraced atmosphere over explanation. It leaves behind a chilling thought. Sometimes the greatest danger is not what you encounter in space, it is what follows you back. Number 7. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, 1969. There is a quiet fascination in the idea that something exists just beyond our reach, not in another galaxy, not in another dimension, but hidden in plain sight. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun takes that fascination and turns it into a concept that feels both elegant and deeply unsettling. A newly discovered planet mirrors Earth perfectly, same size, same orbit, always hidden on the opposite side of the sun. At first, the discovery feels like triumph, a scientific breakthrough that redefines humanity's place in the universe. A mission is launched, exploration begins. But the closer the astronauts get to this mirror world, the more unsettling the implications become. If it is identical, then what does that mean for identity itself? For existence? For individuality? What follows is not a traditional adventure, but a slow unraveling of certainty. Events begin to feel reversed, familiar yet distorted. Reality itself starts to behave in ways that challenge logic. The idea of a parallel Earth is no longer exciting. It becomes disorienting, even dangerous. What makes this film so compelling is its restraint. It does not rely on spectacle, it relies on concept. The horror is not visual, it is existential. The thought that everything you know could exist elsewhere in a slightly altered form is deeply unsettling. It suggests that reality is not fixed, that identity is not unique. This film disappeared into the shadows despite its bold premise. But its influence echoes in later science fiction that explores parallel worlds and mirrored realities. It leaves behind a haunting question. If another version of your world exists, what happens when the two begin to overlap? Number 6. The Bamboo Saucer, 1968. The Cold War was not just a political conflict, it was a psychological one. A constant tension built on secrecy, suspicion, and the fear of the unknown. The Bamboo Saucer captures that tension and fuses it with one of the era's most persistent obsessions: UFOs. The result is a story that feels grounded in reality, yet tinged with mystery. An American scientist working in a remote region makes contact with something extraordinary, a flying object not built by any known nation, not entirely understood. As word spreads, multiple powers become involved, each with their own agenda, each willing to claim the discovery for themselves. The focus shifts quickly from curiosity to control. What makes this film stand out is its tone. It does not present extraterrestrial contact as wonder. It presents it as a strategic asset, something to be analyzed, exploited, weaponized, if possible. The human response becomes the true center of the story. Suspicion grows, alliances feel temporary, trust becomes fragile. The UFO itself remains elusive, not fully explained, not fully revealed, which adds to the sense of unease. The unknown is never comfortable. It creates tension simply by existing beyond comprehension. The characters are forced to confront something that does not fit within their existing frameworks of understanding. This film faded because it avoids dramatic spectacle, but its grounded approach makes it feel authentic. It reflects a time when the greatest fear was not invasion from space, but the possibility that someone else might control what came from it first. Number 5. The Power, 1968. There is something inherently terrifying about a threat you cannot see. Not because it hides in shadows, but because it hides inside people. The Power builds its entire tension around that idea. A group of scientists gathers to discuss the possibility of human psychic evolution, telekinesis, mental dominance, the ability to influence reality without physical interaction. It sounds theoretical at first, almost speculative, until one of them is murdered. What follows is not a hunt for a physical killer, but for a presence. Someone within the group possesses extraordinary mental abilities, strong enough to control others, strong enough to kill without leaving a trace. The danger is immediate but invisible. Every conversation becomes suspect. Every interaction carries the weight of uncertainty. Trust erodes quickly because the enemy could be anyone. The film thrives on paranoia. It strips away the safety of logic and replaces it with psychological tension. The characters are intelligent, rational, yet they are forced into a situation where rational thinking offers no protection. The more they try to understand the phenomenon, the more vulnerable they become. What makes this story so effective is its simplicity. No elaborate technology, no distant planets, just the human mind pushed beyond its limits. The idea that evolution could produce individuals capable of dominating others without detection is deeply unsettling. It turns progress into a threat. This film was overshadowed by louder science fiction of its time, but its quiet intensity gives it lasting power. It reminds us that the most dangerous advancements are not always external. Sometimes they emerge from within, and once they do, there may be no way to contain them. Number 4. Robinson Crusoe on Mars, 1964. Isolation has always been one of the most powerful tools in science fiction. Strip away society, and what remains is the raw essence of survival. Robinson Crusoe on Mars takes a familiar literary concept and transports it to a world that feels both alien and hauntingly real. A man is stranded on Mars after a mission goes wrong. No rescue, no communication, just an endless landscape of red emptiness. The film approaches survival with a grounded realism that was rare for its time. Oxygen becomes currency. Water becomes obsession. Every movement is calculated because every mistake carries consequences. This is not an adventure filled with constant action. It is a slow, methodical struggle against an environment that offers nothing willingly. What elevates the story is its attention to psychological detail. Loneliness begins to shape perception. Silence becomes oppressive. The mind searches for connection, even when none exists. When another presence finally appears, it shifts the narrative from survival to fragile companionship. Trust forms slowly because survival depends on it. Visually, the film creates a believable Mars long before modern technology made such realism common. The landscapes feel vast and unforgiving. The environment itself becomes a character, indifferent, unyielding, always present. This film slipped into obscurity because it lacked spectacle compared to later space epics, but its influence can be seen in modern survival stories set beyond Earth. It captures a truth that remains timeless. Exploration is not just about discovery, it is about endurance, and sometimes survival is the only victory that matters. Number 3. Crack in the World, 1965. Humanity has always believed it could control nature, that intelligence and technology could bend the planet itself to its will. Crack in the World challenges that belief with terrifying precision. Scientists attempt to access geothermal energy by detonating a nuclear device deep within the Earth's crust. The goal is progress, unlimited energy, a breakthrough that could redefine civilization. Instead, they create something irreversible. A fracture begins to form. Not a surface crack, but a deep rupture that threatens to split the planet itself. What starts as a controlled experiment quickly escalates into a global catastrophe. The Earth is no longer stable. It is reacting, expanding the damage with unstoppable force. The film builds tension through inevitability. There is no villain to defeat, no enemy to outsmart, only a consequence that grows larger with every passing moment. The scientists who initiated the project are forced to confront their own responsibility. Knowledge becomes guilt. Ambition becomes regret. Yet none of it can undo what has been set in motion. What makes this story so powerful is how grounded it feels. The science is speculative, but rooted in real fears of the era: nuclear experimentation, environmental disruption. Fight the idea that one decision could trigger a chain reaction beyond human control. It transforms progress into a potential threat. This film has been largely forgotten because it lacks flashy spectacle, but its core idea remains deeply relevant. It asks a question that still resonates. What happens when humanity pushes too far? When curiosity overrides caution? Sometimes the cost of discovery is not advancement. It is survival itself. Number 2. First Men in the Moon, 1964. There is a sense of wonder that defined early science fiction, a belief that space was not just a destination, but a mystery waiting to be uncovered. First Men in the Moon captures that wonder while quietly subverting it. Based on the work of H.G. Wells, the story blends Victorian imagination with the emerging reality of space exploration. An elderly man claims to have traveled to the moon long before modern missions made it possible. His story unfolds through recollection, revealing a journey that is both fantastical and unsettling. The moon is not empty. It is inhabited by an organized alien society living beneath the surface, intelligent, structured, entirely different from human expectations. What begins as an adventure transforms into a confrontation between two civilizations. The humans arrive driven by curiosity. The lunar inhabitants respond with caution, even fear. The encounter becomes a reflection of human nature itself. Exploration quickly shifts toward intrusion. Curiosity edges toward domination. The film balances charm with deeper themes. Its tone remains accessible, yet it raises questions about colonialism and the consequences of discovery. The idea that humanity carries its own flaws into every new frontier adds a layer of complexity often missing from similar stories. It has faded from popular memory because of its lighter presentation compared to later science fiction. But beneath that tone lies a thoughtful narrative. It reminds us that the unknown is not just something to conquer, it is something to understand. And sometimes the greatest discoveries reveal more about ourselves than the worlds we explore. Number 1. The Time Travelers, 1964. Time travel has always promised escape, the ability to move beyond the present, to witness the future, to understand what lies ahead. The Time Travelers takes that promise and turns it into something far more unsettling. A group of scientists accidentally opens a window into another time. And at first it is only observation, a glimpse into what the world will become, but curiosity pushes them further. They step through, entering a future that feels both advanced and broken. Civilization has not evolved in the way they expected. Instead, it has fractured. Survivors exist in isolated groups while something else lurks beneath the surface. Something that was once human but has changed beyond recognition. The film creates a sense of unease through contrast. The technology appears advanced, yet the world feels decayed. Progress has not led to harmony. It has led to division. The travelers are not explorers anymore. They are intruders in a timeline that no longer belongs to them. What makes this story compelling is its cyclical nature. Time is not linear. What actions in the present ripple forward and backward, creating consequences that cannot be contained. The characters begin to realize that their presence may already be part of the future they are witnessing. That escape is not possible because they are already within the loop. This film has been overshadowed by larger time travel narratives, but its ideas remain powerful. It presents the future not as a destination, but as a warning, a reflection of choices made in the present. And once those choices are set in motion, the future may be impossible to change. Some films fade because they fail. Others fade because they were too early, too bold, or too unsettling to be fully understood. These forgotten stories still echo with ideas that feel alive today. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe and tell me which hidden gem deserves to return.